4,772.6. This is the total amount of hours that I've spent playing everything in my Steam library, or almost everything. We'll get to that in just one second. I have 204 games, and excluding the top and bottom 5, better statistics or something, I don't know. I have 4,772 hours, putting me at an average of 24.6 hours played per game. Let's just call it 25 for convenience sake. And honestly, that's higher than I thought it was gonna be. I was thinking it'd be somewhere around 12 or 15. 25 hours per game is a pretty hefty time investment. Plenty of time to get familiar with the game's core systems, general gameplay loop, and definitely enough time to determine the overall caliber of what's being offered and reach an accurate conclusion on its value. But as I said just a few seconds ago, I excluded the top and bottom 5 games from that 25-hour average. So what happens when we then take a look at the top 5? Oh my. If we add these 5 games in with the rest, they alone almost triple that 25-hour average all the way up to 74 hours. 10,283.5 total hours, or 2,056.7 hours per game within solely the top 5. Even better, if we look at just the top 3, almost 9,000 hours played with an average of almost 3,000 per. And that's exactly what I want from my games. I've always been the kind of guy to stick to one main game and then maybe play a couple others on the side. It started with RuneScape back in elementary school. My brother and I played so much RuneScape that our parents had to start turning off the router every night when they went to bed as we just get on our computers after they say goodnight to us. This entire ordeal progressed to the point where, and I'm not kidding, my mom would sleep with the router next to her after they figured out that whatever they did, turn it off, unplug it, or even go hide it, my brother and I would just go upstairs and find it and start playing again. I mean, we even started setting an alarm for midnight or 1 a.m. and then would take turns sneaking up and finding the router like a covert ops mission. Needless to say, I played a lot of RuneScape. Then along came the Xbox, and naturally a lot of Halo, a lot of Call of Duty, and even more Gears of War. Shout out to all my Gears homies out there, you the real ones. And then League of Legends. I'm pretty sure that I've played more League of Legends than every single game in my library combined. Not much else I need to say about that one. But here's the point, as I'm sure you're wondering why the heck I just told you all of this. In recent times, partly as gaming has turned into my career and partly as I've just gotten older and grown my taste, I've been wondering why games don't stick like they used to. Originally, I was thinking this video was gonna be more of a breakdown of games that both hold my interest and those that don't, what separates them, what lessons can be learned, blah, 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 blah. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, who cares? Seriously, we all have such different tastes in games that ultimately, no matter what I say and how objective it may be, we just game differently when it comes down to it. I mean, there are definitely some objectively bad games out there, don't get me wrong. So instead, I just want to cover 3 games that I've appreciated the most in the past few years. Risk of Rain 2, Path of Exile, and Escape from Tarkov. What do each title in this trio have in common with one another? Hello? Oh, yeah, I asked you a question, man. What, you thought I would have the answer? Me? The guy who's making the video on the top? You actually thought I was going to answer the question? Now, each of these 3 games absolutely have their fair share of issues, but more importantly, they also each excel, and I mean truly excel, at one or a couple particular aspects. Basically, these games do something so well that I can't help but compare every other game I play to them in some capacity. Let's start with Risk of Rain 2. It's all about the combat, baby. You'll have 2 or 3 major combat encounters per stage, one every couple minutes or so, and each encounter feels like its own little puzzle that you have to solve, requiring you to adapt accordingly to overcome it. The beauty is that said puzzle doesn't only have one solution. Think more Rubik's Cube than Jigsaw puzzle. Instead, your own personal playstyle dictates the flow of combat more so than any other factor. Risk of Rain 2, being a roguelike, does have RNG play a factor in your current run, but as you play the game more and more, the impacts RNG has on your run diminish to the point of pretty much being negligible. My point is that you can play this game any which way you'd like and have just as enjoyable an experience as someone who chooses the polar opposite because of how finely tuned the combat is. There are the typical fodder enemies who pose somewhat of a threat, especially in large groups, but mainly serve as a continual source of engagement. There are the standard threat guys who keep you in check but don't require too much focus to take down, and then there are the big boys, the ones that when you see them, you take them out then and there, or you're probably gonna die. The cool thing is that you never really know what group of enemies the game's gonna throw at you next, as the spawns are determined by a system called the Director. In short, the Director uses a credits system where it chooses to spawn anything inside of a short-term limit that scales as the run goes on. You, as the player, can choose to stay on a given stage as long as you could possibly desire, so there is no hard cap on the total amount of credits that the Director can spend, just a cap on how much it can spend at any given moment. This ensures that the player is, more or less, always engaged in some sort of combat. Each enemy has a base credit cost associated with it. The harder the enemy, the more expensive it is to spawn, with an additional credit cost attached to elite modifiers, which the director can choose to apply to a given enemy. So, as long as the director stays within its credit budget, it can spawn anything its heart desires. And boy, does its heart desire some pretty different stuff. Sometimes you'll just get a bunch of fodder enemies, wave after wave after wave, with an occasional elite thrown into the mix, and other times you'll sit and sit and sit and sit until finally the director chooses to slap you in the face with 3 giga threat dudes simultaneously. Oh, and it just spawned another group of fodder enemies right behind you too. Oh, and you just hit the teleporter to start the boss encounter. Have fun. Not only is the staggered nature of the encounters compelling, but also the actual enemies that you're encountering. Think of each enemy like its own chess piece with a distinct set of rules that it has to follow. Then put a bunch of those enemies together in different combinations, and suddenly you're playing a game with almost limitless variety in its moment-to-moment gameplay. Factor in the character that you choose to play, the skills you use on top of said character, the loot you've obtained in your run, and boom, that's a darn good experience right there, partner. I've taken a couple breaks from Risk of Rain 2 over the 4.5 years that I've been playing it, but I always come back for some more simply because of how good the flow of combat is. Path of Exile. If you only know one thing about PoE, oh, is he gonna do it? It's almost certainly, oh, he's gonna do it, he's gonna do it. This is my favorite part. Positively. Show it, show it, show it, show it. Hey, keep it down over there. I'm trying to do something that absolutely no one has ever seen before. You're gonna ruin this cool and awesome moment. Yeah, all right, it's the game with the skill tree. Bam. There it is. Wow, so big, so awesome. Wow, wow. But for real, PoE has absolutely ruined every single RPG that I play nowadays because of how insane its customization is. You can quite literally pull off any idea that you have within the game's own boundaries, of course, on any character that you want to. That is some customization right there, folks. Let's say you're all about the spin to win playstyle. In other ARPGs, like Diablo, for example, you have pretty much only a single choice for your build. In this case, Barbarian. Why? Because the norm in RPGs is to restrict skills to the class that you choose, which creates a more streamlined experience for newer players. Too much choice has a good chance of scaring them off, right? Well, Path of Exile obviously does not care about that one bit. Why else would it greet you with this behemoth practically the instant you open the game up? To go back to spin to win, skills in Path of Exile, unlike other RPGs, come in the form of tradable items, skill gems, and the only restriction behind these gems is their attribute requirements, which any class can meet. So, in Path of Exile, your options for some spinny boy action come down to much more than a simple character choice. Want a traditional playstyle? Sure, choose the Slayer or Berserker Ascendancy and then use the beefiest physical damage two-hander that you can get. Maybe you like being a bit different. Try the Raider with her ability to leverage elemental damage in close quarters while being quite nimble on top of that. Maybe you want to do something entirely out of left field. Alright then. The Occultist, grab the specific pair of unique boots which allow you to stack strength and gain flat chaos damage, then play the numbers game to get over 1,000 strength, equating to a metric butt ton of damage. It's a real measurement, trust me. Then focus on as many multipliers to your damage as possible, such as the chaos exclusive Wither, or more generic ones like this weapon, which doubles all damage dealt to chilled enemies, which normally wouldn't work without a source of cold damage, but is conveniently enabled through this mace mastery on the skill tree, which allows any source of damage to chill, so long as it's from a mace. And wow, would you look at that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a mace, and then you get the idea. But that's not even the end of it. You can turn yourself into an auto-casting nuclear bomb or a spell slinger on copious amounts of performing enhancing substances, and every single one of those playstyles that I just covered is enabled through the seemingly simple Cyclone skill. One skill. And how many skills does Path of Exile have again? Seriously, I cannot overstate how much control you have over what you want to do in Path of Exile. If you can think it, you can almost certainly do it. The only thing then becomes how effectively you can do it, which is where character choice, specific pathing on the skill tree, itemization, budget, and all of the other stuff comes into play. Yes, PoE has a steep learning curve. Yes, your first few characters will likely suck balls even with following a guide, which, oh yeah, I almost forgot to say, follow a build guide. I promise you that Path of Exile is one of the very, very few games out there that is more enjoyable when you follow a guide. In fact, one of my main issues with the game is that its sheer scale does more to intimidate potential players rather than attract them, and otherwise they would love what the game has to offer. Guides alleviate that intimidation factor almost entirely and do so without, and believe me when I say this, without ruining the enjoyment of figuring things out for yourself. There are plenty of things to learn when when starting out in Path of Exile, a guide simply points you in the right direction and keeps you on track. So please just choose an archetype like bow and arrow, two-handed melee, lightning mage, whatever you want, slap PoE beginner guide at the end of it, and find something that interests you. The game has grown so much over the decade that I've been playing it, and wait, hold on, I've been playing this game for a freaking decade? I'm a PoE boomer, man, what the? But for real, the game has grown so much over the years that I'd be very surprised if you haven't at least heard its name in your gaming spheres at one point or another. There are so many resources out there that are easy to dive into and will get you going to Path of Exile in no time. All you have to do is start looking. I mean, you also could just dive into it like a real gamer. You know, I'm not going to say anything about it, but you know, you could just be a real gamer. Finally, escape from Tarkov. I'm gonna level with you real quick. Tarkov is definitely in the worst state out of all of the games that I've talked about in this video. It's got bugs, it's got desync, it's got cheaters, it's got a 7-year beta period. But man, I'll be head eyes in an instant if it isn't the best, worst game out there. At least there's no MTX store, right? There is absolutely nothing else on the market like Tarkov right now. Nothing. Zero. Nada. Zilch. And there is absolutely a reason why you're seeing major AAA developers trying to snag some of the extraction shooter market share that Tarkov monopolizes. DICE, Activision, Bungie. Marathon. Are you serious, bro? Have you played Destiny PvP? You think this is the same Bungie that made Halo, guys? Look at their track record, boys. They had it. They had it right there. They freaking threw it out the window. It's gone. It's out of here. It's never coming back. Bungie. Anyway, despite its flaws, of which it has many, my friend group and I still come back to play Tarkov pretty much every single night because it truly scratches an itch that no other game can. And if I had to pick the one aspect that exemplifies Tarkov the most, it would be the immersion. No, not the hardcore milsim hyper-realism type of immersion. I mean the most basic kind. Just being there, playing the game. I don't know, man. It's just fun to walk around in Tarkov. Now, I absolutely play this game sweaty. My W key is glued down whenever escapefromtarkov.exe is running. However, despite the type of raid that I'm currently in, whether I'm presently fragging out or just spawned on the eastern side of Shoreline, the best spawn in the game, of course, I'm always having a good time traversing the map. There is so much attention to detail and creativity in Tarkov's map designs. You could ask 100 different players what their favorite map is and get 100 different answers. Not because there are 100 different maps, but because each map plays so differently than the others that one person's favorite spot on a certain map will likely be an entirely different spot than another player. Take Customs, for example, probably the most popular of the 9 maps. Say you know exactly what you're doing. You're here to kill as many people as possible, but oops, you got the big red spawn. Unlucky, brother. Time to pop an SJ6 and book it halfway across the map before you have a chance of seeing your first victim. Oh, hold on, wait a second. Look at that. Little Timbo over here just got the other big red spawn, and he's running into it right now. Here's the action you've been craving. Go get him. Do it. Do it. Do it. Kill little Timmy. Feast on his pack. Or just keep running over to Ruath and bully the dudes looting Crack House, or the dude camping Pocket Watch Stairs, or the dudes looking for the goons of Fortress, or the dudes running across the road to dorms. Anyone, really. Seriously, Tarkov's map designs are straight up master classes in being compelling in a narrative and gameplay manner. Well, for the most part. I don't like you, and I want you to never forget that. And it's not just the maps. Tarkov is kind of known for its crazy level of detail in almost every aspect, all without going too far over the gameplay versus realism line. The gun models, the animations, reloading, checking chambers, fixing malfunctions, all that stuff, and the attachment system are all great examples of the realistic side, while the movement, healing, and the looting is more over to the gameplay one. And the shooting is, well, somewhere in between right now. Please, BSG, just fix the heinous first shot recoil. It's all we're asking for. All of these things come together and result in an experience that is immersive as heck, especially when playing with friends. Yeah, I know. Anything you do is more fun with your friends. Literally, watching paint dry on the wall is better with friends. But even the most devout single-player gamers out there enjoy Tarkov more with their homies. Trust me, because I'm one of those gamers. Yeah, the asking price is steep even for the base edition. Yeah, you're probably going to develop PTSD over the first 10 raids that you do. Yeah, you're definitely going to get head-eyed by Zhaoping Zhaodong 69 the first time you bring a medikit in the raid, but you're going to have fun doing it. Once you dip your toes into the well that Tarkov offers, you'll be sucked down into its depths and never see the light of normal FPS games again. And with that, I'm done. Thanks for watching.
I'm here.
Oh my gosh, it's a player.
I heard a death sound.
Oh yeah, he's dead. He bled out. He screamed like a little girl, bro. This isn't working. There we go. I don't know if this will work. This is funny though. Is it even damaging you?
Yeah.
How? What the heck? How are you alive?